Let's talk about desktop horror. I'm a huge found footage horror fan. As you can tell if you've watched several of my videos, I love talking about found footage horror movies, and I consider the desktop screen life genre to be in the same vein as found footage horror. It's some of my favorite movies to watch, so I wanted to dive in and discuss some of my favorite desktop horror movies in the genre. So let's get into it, shall we? First, and the probably most influential movie on this list, is the Collingswood Story. This one centers on a couple who are communicating via webcam. One night, they decide to contact a psychic, and they learn that the girlfriend is living in a house that might be haunted. This one is so simple but effective. It takes its time to get there, but I think the payoff is really great. The characters feel real, like you're watching an actual couple, and I just love the aesthetic and vibe. It just brings me back to the days of being on a desktop computer, and I miss that so much. What I love about this is these characters didn't have Wi-Fi, so this movie has constraints for these characters where they can't move from whatever room they're in. It gives like a claustrophobic feeling to things, and it constricts everything, it confines everything, and there's just an extra added sense of dread with that because you don't know what's around the corner, only the character can see what's around the corner. And I think it has an amazing final act and final few moments that had my heart racing. It's one of my new favorites. It's become a comfort movie for me, and I love it so much. Deadware is another recent watch for me. This is a newer desktop horror, and it's about two friends who are communicating via web chat, like in the Collingswood Story. So it feels like a throwback to older horror films in an older time. And these friends are catching up, and they decide to play this weird random game they get an invitation to from another friend. And this game is a horror game, and it seemingly has consequences on their real life world. For one, I love the aesthetic of this. I love that it's set in the 90s, and it feels like it. I love the sounds of the computer and them clicking through the game. It feels like you're watching like two streamers on YouTube, but it's on a webcam. I think that the two actors are great, and they get a lot across in such a short time. I do think that there are some confusing moments, but I think that the overall setup was very good and creative, and I had a blast with this one. It's one of my favorites now. Next is Unfriended Dark Web. This is a sequel to Unfriended, which I didn't like as much. I love this one a lot more. It's a lot more disturbing and darker. This one centers on characters who are much older. I think they're in their 30s or around there, and one character in this friend group, he essentially steals a computer from a cafe, and when he opens it up, he discovers that this computer is filled with snuff films. The rest of his group gets pulled into this whole situation, and it becomes extremely dangerous, and there's like really dangerous people after them, and it's just disturbing as they watch and go through the actual files on this computer and see how these women die. There's just a really heightened sense of danger throughout this movie. The stuff is just brutal, and this movie feels unrelenting. Like, it doesn't let up, and there is no hope. There's like a hopelessness in this movie. So it's dark, it's bleak, and it's not one that will make you feel good, but I thought they did a brilliant job telling this story. Host is another one that came out in 2020 during the pandemic, when we all needed something to bring us together and sit around our computers and watch a movie about a group of friends who are having a seance via Zoom that goes horribly wrong. It's just perfectly executed. I love that they took basically the perfect time to execute this story. It happened right at the start of the pandemic. It's centered around the pandemic, so it just felt too real, and I think that's what made it work so well, because it made Zoom scary, and it's something that we all had started just using for the first time really regularly, and the idea that this ghost can transfer through the computer was terrifying, and seeing what these characters go through, it was horrifying, and I thought it was very well paced, and it has a great payoff. The Den is another interesting desktop horror. This is about a young woman who starts going into random chat rooms to chat with people. She's studying the behaviors of web chat users, and while she's doing this, she witnesses someone being murdered, and she gets pulled into this whole dangerous world, and she starts becoming a target of this killer. This one is, again, it uses the web chat format very well and creatively, and just the idea that anybody can find you on the internet is fucking terrifying. It's scary. Radar is another one that's kind of similar to The Den. It's about a young girl played by Ashley Benson who is essentially being stalked through her webcam, and she has absolutely no idea. It's just scary to watch this person mess with her in little ways, little subtle ways, and she is kind of questioning, is she just imagining it, until things ramp up and become insane. I think that is terrifying. It's a terrifying look at how your privacy can be invaded, and it is one of the reasons why I always keep something over my webcam, even though I'm nowhere near it most of the time. But you never know who's watching. Skin is Missing is one that I did not like, but I feel like I need to mention in this list because a lot of people do like it. It's a disturbing movie. I don't think it's very good. I think it's exploitive of the little girls in this movie, and it's too much. It's too much. It's about this group, these two girls. One is a little bit more promiscuous than the other. She gets kidnapped, and her friend sets out to find her, and then the friend gets kidnapped. There's moments of SA in this that are prolonged, unnecessary, and just awful. Awful. And I feel like there is a good scare in this movie that's really disturbing and well done, but overall the movie's kind of boring. It's not well acted, and it's just, it feels dirty in a way. But if you're into that sort of thing and you like your stuff disturbing, check it out, I guess. But let me know if you like this one because I do not. Next up is Searching from 2018. This is a little bit more on the thriller side, but this is about a father who is trying to find his daughter. She goes missing one day. He kind of breaks into her computer, he starts chatting with her friends, and this one is so creative because it uses the computer and FaceTime, and the entire story is told through the computer, and I think that they did it so creatively and so effectively, and I was on the edge of my seat throughout this movie. And yes, it is kind of predictable, and I kind of predicted what was gonna happen, but John Cho as the lead is fantastic, and I clung to his every word. Like, you believe him that he is this father desperate to find his daughter, and you hope that there's going to be a good conclusion at the end. Missing is the sequel to Searching, which I also thought was fantastic. It utilizes the desktop format so well to make a really well-paced, terrifying, thrilling story that's equally entertaining. And yes, it does go a little bit off the rails towards the end when you're realizing what's happening, but the lead actress, Storm Reed, fantastic. She's so enjoyable to watch, and you feel invested in her story and what's happening. And she uses creative ways to get around finding out information in another country, and it was just cool to see how they pulled in stuff like Uber Eats and all of that stuff for this character to get information from across the globe. It was just so cool and well done, and I liked this one just as much as the first one. Those are just a few of the desktop horror movies that have stood out to me that I like. Some I don't like as much, but I think they're worth mentioning. Let me know your thoughts about this list. If there are any other movies that you think I should check out that focus on the screen life element, because I love it. I want more of it. I need more of it. And please help me. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I will catch you next time. Bye.